So what we call Lent in English means springtime. In the Romance languages, they go by the simpler 40th because it's the 40 days of preparation for the Paschal Triduum when we celebrate the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ. And it commemorates the 40 days that Christ spent in the desert preparing for his own passion and death and resurrection. And so we use this period of 40 days to get the house in order, so to speak. I think Lent stands out as a season and is characterized by a certain somberness and sobriety because the way in which we celebrate and commemorate is in a lot of ways muted. So we wear purple vestments, which kind of mark seasons of penance, and there's a lot less of excitement. We don't drop the A-bomb, as I call it, saying the Alleluias. And some of our other celebratory songs are put aside for the time period. So there's a kind of quietness to Lent that makes it stand out, and is why I think even non-Christians and non-Catholics note the season because of how different it is from the whole rest of the year. The reason for Lent, the reason why we go through this process is because sin and death puts us in a bad place. And Christ comes to redeem us, to save us from sin. And I think if anyone takes like a realistic look at themselves in the world, sin is a reality. And Lent gives us this chance to not pretend that that doesn't exist, to enter into it with the hope that God has something more for us in store. And it's kind of a mini version of our whole lives of overcoming the power that sin and death have over us with the hope of resurrection and new life. So giving things up for Lent is kind of the most obvious example of penance. And penance is basically a voluntary punishment. So if the answer to sin is punishment, penances are the ones that we choose. And so that can be anything from taking on more times of prayer, taking on more times of almsgiving, and some kind of fasting, some kind of giving up. People will typically choose things that are like luxuries to give up, and that's always a good idea. I recommend something that is not ostentatious, in fact would be embarrassing to explain to somebody else, but serves as this kind of constant reminder that I'm weak and need of help. So things like condiments work for this. To explain to somebody else that you're giving up ketchup or hot sauce sounds a little embarrassing and weak, but every time you have a plate of eggs or macaroni and cheese in front of you, you're reminded of what it is that you're going through. So as religious brothers, as a religious community, our experience of Lent is really just the same as everybody else's, but done in kind of a communal way and perhaps a bit larger. So in addition to taking on our own penances and taking on the changes to the liturgy that everyone experiences, our times of prayer get a little bit simpler. We have new music. We don't drop the A-bomb. We don't sing those Alleluias. Our food penances have to be kind of in common because we have one single kitchen, and so we usually omit meat not just on Friday, but on another day of the week, and try to give from the little bit of spending money that we have as almsgiving to people who are more in need. So it's really just an image of what everyone else is doing to observe the season. Maybe more noticeable because we spend so much of our lives in the chapel. I think there's a temptation to treat Lent as like the Catholic version of New Year's, of like new Lent, new you. And I think trying just to use this as a call to be yourself, but more intentionally, is a better thing than to take on something extravagant. To take this as an opportunity to examine whether or not, or what are the things that you can simplify, and how it is that you can pay attention to where God is calling you to conversion.